Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the opportunity to catch up with my old friend, Gabe Curry. Gabe is one of these serial distribution entrepreneurs, so it's always a pleasure to hear what's going on and all the different things that he has cooking. I mean, it's always fascinating. This guy plays 3D chess in distribution. I mean, it's really kind of fun to hear, what is exciting him right now and where he feels like we're going. One of the things that's always been interesting about his approach is he has looked at those unique niches and really being a marketing professional, that is really true to his heart, is how do we go and attract some of these unique industrial niches and bring them in so that they really, they feel like he understands their business and ultimately they wind up being very loyal to him. And so we talked a lot about the private label business and how that can enhance that relationship. Talked a lot about inside sales versus outside sales. And then ultimately we ran, one of the more interesting things that we came on was his utilization of offshore remote workers. And that's something that I didn't know about his business. And recently I had an expert on talking about recruiting of folks that are outside of the United States. And so it's just kind of ironic that Gabe has been down this trail, and actually he seems like he's pretty adept at doing this. So it's always a pleasure to catch up with him. I really enjoyed this episode, and I hope you do too. This episode was brought to you by my friends at Profit2. Clients have shared that the big thing that sets Profit2 apart is their approach. From the moment you meet the team at Profit2, you get a sense that they know their business and how to help you make improvements safely. What you don't get is an arrogance found in some competitive services. They know that you're an expert in your business, and they seek to help you be just a little bit better. We know resources are harder than ever to find, and with the barrage of price increases, adjusting to the changes is a massive and oftentimes manual challenge. If you want to discover hidden margin opportunities without being talked down to, learn more at www.profit2.com. That's profit with a number 2. And be sure to let them know you heard about them on the Distribution Talk podcast. Well, Gabe, thank you so much for coming back on Distribution Talk. It's always a pleasure to speak with you and see your face.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Jason. I know a lot has progressed since we last spoke, a lot of good stuff, lots to be excited about. And I think more like we talked to be grateful for. I think every day you get up and think it's so much to be grateful for.
Oh, absolutely. And just for the audience, Gabe had the pleasure of being guest number 2 on the show almost 4 years ago now. So I imagine there's a whole lot that's progressed and changed in your life since that time. So if you wouldn't mind, give us a little history lesson and maybe kind of catch us up on where you are today.
Yeah, so I sold Hub Industrial to a public company, great company. The business was good. They did a great job with it. It's always nice to sell your business to a good company. I've owned a agriculture distribution business. What we do is we supply ground cover to trees to landscapers throughout the Southeast. So we own a fleet of semis. We've got a holding yard and, the logistics and the inventory and the freight. We supply landscapers, been doing that for a long time, really scaled that business over the last 4 years. And then I own a software company, and now I'm back in the industrial supply space. Really have a real passion for serving the customer. We call our customers the boss, and delivering them over-the-top customer service on top with unique products that really deliver them value. Because I really believe that in distribution, it's about value to the customer. It's the perception the customer has, and not just the perception. What can they do? Enhance their bottom line, reduce their cost, and make life simpler. Because consumable supplies that we supply as a distributor are very messy. They take a lot to procure, and there's hard cost and soft cost. And really focusing on not just the hard cost, the price of the product, the soft cost. What does it cost to procure? What does it cost to get in? And how do you get products that work better?
That's a heck of a journey you have there. If you wouldn't mind just stepping back a little bit, and what drew you to the distribution space? Why did you do that? And if I recall correctly, the landscape one was it your grandmother that kind of indirectly got you in this, or somebody?
Yeah. So 25 years ago, I worked for a landscaper before I got in the industrial distribution business.
Yeah.
And my landscaping company that I worked for bought a lot of jasmine. So I'm like, well, how do you buy this jasmine? I think it was $1.65. So what I did is I took $300 that I got as a gift. I bought some pots, some dirt, and some jasmine liners and started to grow. And that's what got me into the agriculture business. So it's a nursery, wholesale nursery from ground cover to trees. Well, as that progressed, we realized we weren't growers. We were better at being distributors. Because I left, maybe probably 6 months after I started that, I started out in the industrial supply business. A gentleman came along and I told him I wanted to work for him. And he looked at me and he said, "What's the least amount of money you'll work for?"
Was that Mark, if I remember right?
That was Mark. That's correct. Me being young, dumb, and stupid, I told him $18,000 a year. I was making like $23,000 as a landscaper.
Yeah.
I told him $18,000, and he looked at me and said, "You'll never make more than 50 grand." And I made a lot more than that. I think.
I think you did a little bit better than that over the years.
I did, yes, I did a little better.
Yeah.
But it was a good story, and I learned a ton from working for Mark. He was
sure.
A very disciplined. And a lot of the characteristics I have today came from working for him. So that's what got me into the agriculture business, and then the pivot to the industrial supply business.
And, that's where you and I met, is in the industrial supply business. And, one of the big unique things that I saw when you and I started working together is that a lot of the folks, the go-to-market strategy, you were primarily inside sales versus outside. And that was kind of revolutionary. I saw so much more field sales in industrial supply, but you did it a little bit differently.
Yeah. When I started out in the industrial supply business, my boss looked at me and says, "You need to make 80 physical calls a week." And at the time, it was like 1996, and cell phones really weren't a thing at the time. So I remember pulling my car up next to the payphone.
Yeah.
You knew the payphones that I had a pager, right? A pager, and you had the long.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
What you learned was, eventually I bought the business from Mark, and I learned the cost of a call. A lot of people will say that a physical sales call costs $80, be $80 plus, depending on how many you make, and a phone call costs $5. So we really looked at it and say, I don't like words like touching base or follow up. You really want to engage the customer. But we found out that we could really do a good job on the phone, and then combining that with marketing, marketing to engage the customer, show them private label products that deliver them value. But the cost of a sales call, a physical call, is very expensive. And in distribution, it's all about reducing cost. So it's really, how do we build a relationship with the customer? And then how do we align our sales team to really deliver them value? Because it's in business, I truly believe that it's all about the value that we deliver to our boss, our customers.
Mm-hmm. If you could, really thinking about that insight, they really bought into this philosophy. Your team, they drank the Kool-Aid. They were, they were really invested in that, making sure the customer had what they want and really help them feel comfortable in the transaction.
That's correct. And we aligned our sales team to certain industries. We as a business, David, today we say the riches is in the niches. And our reps they were aligned more to a certain type of business. And that certain type of business is what drove the value to the consumer. But when they would call on the phone, it was, what are you doing? What are you delivering value? And we actually found that we were able to deliver the customer more value on the phone than a physical call.
And that's really counterintuitive to kind of conventional wisdom, especially in the construction and industrial related spaces. They felt like they had to be in that physical presence. That was just absolutely required. And I think you all proved that it wasn't. And in fact, you could deliver tremendous value with that phone call.
With the phone call matched with email. Today the world is so much text, email, not as much texting back then, but text, email, phone call. And yes, we still do physical calls, but we want to make sure that not every touch is a physical call. When you combine physical with text, with email, it makes a big difference in the interaction with the customer. And it's about delivering the customer, we call them the boss, value.
Yeah. So speaking of the boss, let's jump onto that one for a moment. That was really the tagline originally. I mean, that was you're the boss. And I remember learning about this. Now, that also came in with the unique niches that you would develop. I mean, this was something that, again, set you apart. Tell me a little bit about how that came about. That original, if I recall, was it pallets, pallet building? Was that the first niche that you explored, or was there another one?
Yeah, it was the pallet industry. And what really drove it, I would always go to things like ISA and the different shows, and I always ask everybody, what differentiates you from everybody else? And the overriding theme that I always heard was it's our service. Because distribution really what separates you from everybody else. I know,
Right.
Jason, when you came in, we would also discuss inventory, having the
Yeah.
right inventory in the right place at the right time has a big deal to do with service. I always, like on the back of the dollar bill, it says, "In God we trust."
Yeah.
But I always would say, all others bring data. So I would say, how do we measure service? If everybody is saying service, how do we measure service? So I started to really study that. And there, many have heard there's a thing called the Net Promoter Score.
Yes.
And the Net Promoter Score is when you ask the customer, would you refer us to a friend? And in fact, I did a course, an executive CEO class at Harvard, and the gentleman that invented the Net Promoter Score spake. And it was interesting to hear him talk. He works for, I think it's Bain and Company, and he charges $50,000 an hour to come into a company. And Net Promoter Score today is very popular. Many companies report their Net Promoter Score. I think Chick-fil-A's in the 70s, Verizon's an 8. Tesla's got one of the highest Net Promoter Scores out there. So I went to a thing called John DeJulius. And what John DeJulius was all about service. Companies like the Ritz-Carlton, Chick-fil-A, it's about the value to the customer. So we really got into it. And then what John DeJulius said was, if you can't take care of your team, they're not going to take care of the customer, because the culture of a business, if the team is taken care of, they naturally take care of the customer. It really changed the way I thought. So I really started to track Net Promoter Score. I believe when I sold Hub, we were in the 63, 64. And Net Promoter Score is a really, really big deal. Now, I know today it's a very normal word out with many companies and many distributions. What's your Net Promoter Score? At my agriculture company today, I think we're in 97. And what we did is, I got this fact from an auto dealership that I ran into when I was at the Harvard class, is when our drivers make a delivery, they hand a card to the customer and they say, on a scale of 1 to 10, would you refer us to a friend? We used to send that out by email, Jason, but today we have our driver hand them that. And the reason is and that feedback goes instantly to the entire team that is involved with that project. Why does that matter? We get live feedback right away, and we
Sure.
get it from the front line, not somebody that gets an email weeks later. Because we found that the email weeks later was not very relevant. They're like, I don't know. I don't remember interacting with Green Dynamix. So not just getting the Net Promoter Score, getting it right at when the sale was made really changed the way we did business.
No, I think that's fantastic. Too many people overlook the power of that delivery driver and the influence of that delivery driver. So I think that's a phenomenal way to really, you're at the point of, do I like you or don't like you? I mean, you're right there at that moment. So if I could for a second, going back and looking at some of the ways that the niches came up, I guess when I was looking at the way, the other tagline that I always liked, or, we are experts in your business, and you really made that customer feel special. And these were a lot of niches that nobody made feel special.
Yeah, so like today I've opened up another business. It's called Fuelbox Industrial, and we're heavily going after the pallet industry. I mean, I sold a great company and really care about them, but our passion is to delivering so much value to the customer, and that's how you help change a business. So it's developing private label products. And when I say private, we're actually developing products that really, really deliver value to the customer, and then understanding the itch, as we call it, or the problem that our customers have, and building products that help solve that problem. For example, one product that we developed just recently is we have a circular cutting blade. A lot of pallet people that use recycled pallets, they cut wood with nails. Now, if you were to go to Home Depot, you can buy a circular blade, but it's designed for cutting wood, not wood with nails. So if you hit a nail in the wood, a lot of times the blade will fall apart or can be unsafe. We build a very special geometry of the teeth and the carbide. Why does this matter? That can cut wood with nails. But what that does is that solves a pallet company's problem and makes it a lot easier because we design products. And if you're selling to 1,000 of them or serving 1,000 of them, you can really afford the R&D and have the volume to drive the price down, delivering a better product that really is designed for the unique application.
And again, to develop products like that, you have to get involved with those individual niches. And again, looking at some of the different niches that you've gone after, it's like they were overlooked. These were overlooked niche markets. And when you came in and said, I really want to understand this. And again, I want to develop products that are unique to you and will solve your problems. I think that's really where that loyalty just absolutely came into play.
Correct. Because, for example, if they're buying a 10-inch 42 circular blade, but our blade has a special teeth geometry and special carbide for cutting a wood with nails, it really solves a problem for them. A lot of times, if you're only serving 4 or 5, you cannot afford the R&D or to bring in 10,000 of them at a time. So it's when you understand the customer, and we line our salespeople to the industries. So not just here, go have a geographic territory. It's what's your industry? And then we line them to the industry and we can really deliver the customer a lot of value. And then that even goes back to when we're calling them, we're delivering mad value because we know why they lose sleep at night.
Yeah, I think that's really that secret sauce is that you all have become invested in their business and they believe that. I think that's really important that so many industrial customers don't believe that the supplier is invested in their business. It's very hard to differentiate as well, but there's just not that relationship and not the person digging in and really trying to find the problem. They're really trying to apply kind of a broad stroke solution to an industry. That's a really big differentiator for you all.
Yep. We always would say, and some people would say, really, what does our customer look like? And what causes them to lose sleep? It's generally not on consumable supplies. Some of the biggest things are labor. But if you can define a product that makes their labor easier, that helps them recruit. So it's like we make a bandsaw blade at Fuelbox that helps reduce operator fatigue. And we think, why does that matter? Well, it's one of the toughest positions in a pallet facility. But our teeth geometry makes the bandsaw easier to line up to the pallet. Why does that matter? Because it can reduce operator fatigue substantially. And when you make it easier, that helps their labor. If you don't understand the bandsaw, how it works, it's hard to present that to the customer.
Absolutely. And I looked, I saw that, the automobile recycling business is another area that you've been in previously, but then it looks like you're kind of jumping back in there and looking at unique solutions for that. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we will be back in the auto dismantling business.
Gotcha. And again, auto dismantling business. Unique. People would say, are there really that many of those?
There's 10,000.
Exactly. And I think that's really the interesting thing for me is that you found some of these very unique businesses that, again, many people would look over. But as you said, there's 10,000 of them. But you have to be willing to go all the way, in this case, across the country to service those. It can't be just a really localized geography.
Yes, if you do localized geography, there's only 50 or 100. And it's really, how do you may only sell to 10 of them. And you cannot afford the R&D and training the sales team to align to the industry unless you're serving a number of them.
Exactly. Yeah, you cannot develop products for them if you have 50 of them on the books. I mean, it's just that's not going to pencil out very well for you. But how many unique niches did you find originally and then in the previous life?
Probably 7 to 10, but they're all over. They're everywhere you go, right? I mean, because I learned, you would find a abrasive point manufacturer that just sold to airline motor companies, so they're all over. How does anything become mad value? I've started wearing Vuori clothes. I still do wear a lot of Lululemon, but I switched to Vuori because they design clothes that deliver value to men. Not that Lululemon didn't, but Lululemon started with yoga pants and then pivoted to men's clothes. I think their clothes are great, but I think Vuori is better. So how does a company start up? I mean, Lululemon's a monster in the marketplace, but what Vuori did is the same. Now they do female clothes as well, but Vuori really targeted on male. So there's opportunities in business all over, but it's just to understand the customer, the problem they have, and how do you deliver more value, and then how do you deliver the product to them in an efficient manner at a strong value proposition for them.
Now, when you are exploring one of these niches, and just any one of them that you discover and you're looking at these opportunities, is this you going in, or do you have a team that goes in to look at this, or how does that work in your organization?
It's all. We have a team that goes in. We have a number of salespeople. It's understanding the business, the feedback from the field. Is there value that we can deliver? Can we create products that are going to deliver more value? And that's so it's not just, oh, gee, let's try this. There's a lot of study and thought that goes into getting into an industry.
And in the old days, I know that you built literally mini catalogs, for each one of these different niches. In the digital world, how is that different? How's that changed? How do you take that on?
Digital world is you build a specialty website designed for that industry.
Gotcha.
So you would go, / this industry. So you just add that on, and that's how a customer can log into their portal on your website.
Sure,
so it's pretty easy to do.
And then, the marketing of that, you have different individuals who specialized in these niches. Are they also specialized in the marketing side of that, or is it primarily just the sales side?
No, it's the marketing side. So I have learned, I'm a student of marketing. I've studied marketing for the last 15 years. And marketing is, picture the Goodyear blimp. Sometimes when we go to a sporting event, we'll see the Goodyear blimp. I'm more interested in very targeted marketing as part of the reason Facebook took off, because you could target the marketing very unique to the customer's needs. But I believe in putting the Goodyear blimp over someone's house right when their tires are about to pop, right before they're about to pop, and then move on to the next house. Very, very targeted marketing. Marketing done right and well targeted is a lot less money than having salespeople. Salespeople are expensive. So when you combine marketing with phone calls, with some physical calls, with all that together, you could deliver a strong value proposition to the customer and unique products that deliver value. It can really help sales and really add a lot of momentum to get stuff to the next step.
Yeah, I know that was a very big part of your success early on, was the marketing side and some of the unique promotions that you did to drive interest. Is that something that you found is going into your next venture, or were those types of, giveaways, those type of promotions, are those still relevant in the new economy and the new buyer?
Yeah, I think they're relevant. I think it's, how do you, specials with the deadline, explaining the value proposition of a product to the customer. And then, like we talked about the Goodyear blimp, having it over their house right when they need to replace their tires.
And again, I remember, the helicopters. You gave away a lot of helicopters in your life. Well, I guess we should clarify. These were not full-size helicopters. These were remote copters and things like that. But again, is that kind of promo, is that still relevant?
It's funny you say that. I even offered that in my agriculture business, and we offered it at Fuelbox. I was so passionate about it because when I was a kid, I would look through the Sears robot catalog and I would see them and think, man, I'm one of 10 kids. So I have 9 siblings, and it was a big deal to me. So I could so passionately relay it to the customer. Because I was so passionate, it really took off. I don't think it's as big a deal today because I'm involved in numerous businesses and I'm not so much on the front line. So no, the helicopters, I think if I was directly doing sales and people really got the message, I think that was, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. The reason it works so well is because regardless of your economic status in life, when you brought that home, it was fun.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I still have the original one you gave me. I still have the stickers still on. It says Hub. I mean, it was, and I remember my kids, we talked about and I kind of explained to them, what this was all about and why. And it probably went over their heads, but they really, they looked at that and said, wow, that's kind of cool. That's all we're looking for is, wow, that's kind of cool. And then what do you do from there? Yeah.
And that the emotion that drove, because buying is an emotional process, and the emotion that drove, and they're like, where'd you get this from? I got this from this company, and they supply products to our industry. And that motion drove, and that helped us really get recognition among the customer. And that's where value is driven. Because you've got to get in sales, in marketing, when you look among a mass of people, you've got to get them to raise their hand. And then when they raise their hand, you've got to make sure you're delivering value that the distributor can make money and that you're delivering mad value to the customer. And if you do that and continue to refine your value, I think that's where a company stays in business and does well. And that's where the customer can get value from the distributor.
If we could pivot back to the private label side here, I think that's always been very interesting to me. And again, if I recall, a pretty high percentage of your products before you sold Hub, pretty high percentage were private label. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep. And at the new business, we're probably 85% private label.
That's big. Okay, 85% is very, very big. I mean, and I think that would scare the heck out of a lot of traditional distributors. They couldn't wrap their heads around that.
Yeah, I mean, it works. And it goes in line when we're dealing with the national presence. You go in, it's the switching cost. You get them to switch over to your product, and someone else comes in and says, we can do that for less. Why are you buying from a company from Florida when we're shipping to Washington State, right?
Right.
Today, we private label earplugs. We had a very nice decibel rating. It's a commodity. But if you can get a better decibel rating, softer, and a very strong price, that delivers value to the consumer. So when they go to replace, they bring the Fuelbox back up there and they said, I need this part number, reorder it. That's how we get the repeat business. And then when we're shipping them earplugs, we add along all the other products that deliver them value. Because once somebody's placing an order, you can add on. But you got to give them a reason to place an order.
Yeah. I'm a huge proponent of this. So how does that, going private label, I suspect that the suppliers that, you've worked with, some of the big brand names that, you and I both know very well, do they feel like there's a point of conflict there? Or do the reps feel like there's a point of conflict?
No, I mean, for example, we supply a Moldex earplugs. I think they're one of the best. And Moldex make great products, but our products is more the general line, making it a little bit better. Mm-hmm. Moldex makes a lot of premium earplugs, right? For specialty applications. So no, I do not think there's a conflict to it.
Okay.
And, Moldex understands, we have a general purpose that's really good and really strong, but we're human beings and we all have different, we don't all wear Viore, we don't all wear Lululemon. We all have different brands that we like.
Sure.
And so you can't just say, I'm just doing one. Well, you can, but, it's how do you deliver value to the customer and give them enough options where they can really get what they want? So
it sounds to me a lot of the things that you've explored in the private label world, tend to be more consumable. Would you agree that that's probably the majority of those?
That's correct. Yes. Consumable supplies is, that's really what we did well before. And yes, like even in the agriculture business, we've looked at private labeling water bags that you put around trees. It's something, it's how do you do it and how do you deliver value?
Right. So again, this is going back a lot of years. I worked with a company up in Canada, and the gentleman I was working with, general manager, they had sold trash pumps, industrial, trash pumps. And, I think they were, it cost them $249 or something like that. And they were selling them at $279. And of course, competing against everybody, other knucklehead out in the world, and, always having to adjust pricing and whatnot. And they wound up going and sourcing trash pumps overseas, and they changed the design, made them a little bit better. But the cost, once they were done, I think it was something absurd, like, $49 or something was their landed cost. And it was just something crazy like that. So I'd always tried to convince a couple of my clients that were more equipment heavy. What do you think about doing something like that? I guess, so my question in a roundabout way, have you explored like the tool side or the equipment side or a device side, actually doing some of the R&D and trying to improve that?
I have, and you really got to understand the product. Power tools, there's DeWalt, Makita, all the different brands. And in fact, I've been to overseas plants to make them. And it's the brush time, how long they last. The maybe pumps are different. When you talk drills, grinders, stuff like that, I have not seen the value, certainly not $249, not the same percentage to $49.
Right.
Because it's really how the product lasts. But if you like on a pump, sure, because it's more of a unique product and it's not so mainstream as DeWalt, Makita, Milwaukee. I have not seen it in the grinders, drills, those kind of things. But yes, in bigger items like a generator, yes, I've seen the value of private label and delivering value to the customer.
Gotcha. It's just an interesting one. The industry that I looked at was pool supply. And so they were looking at some of the cleaners, these different pool sharks and all of these things that I really thought that would have been an interesting play to go out. And because again, it's just all those brands that you just mentioned, it's just a free for all. It's really difficult to hold margin and to provide additional value when everybody's got the same stuff.
And what we dealt with was when you sell a Makita grinder and let's say you make 5 or 10%, right? Okay. So you sell a $200 one and you make $20. And then they throw it off the roof and they bring it back and they say it broke. And you go back to Makita. Makita's like, they threw it off the roof.
Exactly.
And then the customer's like, no, we didn't throw it off the roof. And in fact, if you don't credit me this, I'll never buy from you again. And you got jeopardy of all the other products. So that was one of the biggest challenge we had on cutting the price was the warranty. There's a lot of people that do the warranty and the repair, and you can make a lot more money on the repair than you can the tool. And you make it in the specials and the rebate and whatnot. But power tools were a tough one because when they threw it off the roof, they're basically saying, you need to give me a credit. And we're like, Makita won't back it up. Makita's a great company, but I mean, it's in any company in particular, so that was like, how can you sell stuff at such a tight price and stand behind it?
Yeah, I agree, Gabe. It's just, in this particular, the pump, the pump example, that was one of the things I challenged. I said, well, what do you do about a warranty? Because obviously this was, made overseas. And he goes, what my warranty policy is? When somebody comes in and says it broke, I reach down, grab another one and hand it to him. Say, we're done. And it just keeps me, it was no big deal. But you obviously can't do that with, some of these branded products out there.
Well, you can if you've got the margin of 49 to 249.
Yes, you can. That you can do it.
You can. If you're at a 10% margin, you're selling for 200 and buying for 180. It's a lot tougher to do that.
That's always been the toughest thing. I absolutely agree. So if I could, I wanted to kind of jump on to something that, you and I talked, prior to coming on the air. It was about hiring people remotely, remote workers. I mean, I think that are remote associates. And I'll tell you, this is something that's kind of topical that I had recently had someone on the show who she specializes in helping companies hire people that don't necessarily work in the United States. And it sounds to me you've had a little experience with this. You're kind of heading down that trail. Could you share a little bit about what that looks like?
Yeah, the right people in the right spot that deliver, how to it's value to the customer. One of my businesses, we have, 50 plus Filipinos. Now, the Philippines is a different culture and it's in the middle. It's an island. And it's 12 hours, I believe it's 12 hours ahead. So the people are working through the night, but the cost is a lot less. Actually, we have a lot of salespeople there as well for this business. It's a heavily marketing driven business that marketing drives it and then the salespeople close it. So that's really worked well. But some people cannot adapt to, a couple of my companies cannot adapt to the 12-hour delta in time. So in some of the other businesses, we've started bringing on people in Colombia. Colombia has a very high customer service aptitude. It's the same, or depending on daylight saving time, it's the same time zone as the Eastern time zone. And they have good internet. The Philippines sometimes can have typhoons, and that can change things. The internet can go down. We've been able to overcome that. But yes, hiring people from different parts of the world can really help you deliver strong value to the customer and reduce your cost. So, I know that that is definitely something that we've done. It takes some time to integrate because you've got cultures, right? It is a different interaction than what we're used to calling to someone in America. But a lot of people in the U.S. have went remote. And we've even had some of our top salespeople, we have hired assistants, so they're monitoring their emails, helping them out. And that's really helped some of our, studies show that a salesperson sells 25 to 35% of the time. And, 65 to 75% of the time is on admin. If we can reduce that admin to 50%, you can double the sales time of your sales team. And when you got an amazing salesperson, the more time that they spend in front of the customer or on the phone, the more we'll sell, because it's the training and then delivering. That's the same way that we keep a customer is the way we keep a salespeople. They got to see so much value. They're crazy to go anywhere else, and they can deliver mad value and passionate about it to our customer.
So am I correct that you are using, for example, the people that you have in Colombia to be the sales assistant? Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Correct. And direct salespeople, but not working on this high level account. It's the 80-20 rule. You have your best people working on your top accounts, and then some lower accounts. We actually have direct salespeople calling on the accounts from Colombia, but not the top accounts. So we're sorting the customer by, the top accounts are dealt with top, that we align them to the top reps in the US. But some accounts that we don't have time to touch, we can assign them to a salesperson in Colombia and still get good value.
One of the things that this guest shared with me is, for me, I was thinking, oh, okay, you're talking about Eastern Europe or India or different, places there. But she said, really, she tries to start people in Central and South America. And it's really kind of aligning with what you're saying is she said that often, that their English skills are very good and it tends to work out better. And I think, the time zone actually sounds like a huge factor there that can really help as well.
Yeah, the time zone is definitely, we have IT people, in India and different countries, but mainly the majority of our people for two of my businesses in Colombia, not a majority, but a lot of the support people, and the Philippines is different. But 12-hour time zone, you got to have a team to be able to adapt and understand it, because 12 hours is a big difference. They do work through the night, but it's just not quite the same. When you're trying to integrate, you've got to get started with one win, two win, and then you can steadily grow to add more people. But it takes time for a culture to adapt that and understand it.
And is this something that you were doing previously in Hub, or is this something that's maybe been in the last 4 or 5 years?
I did a little bit of it at Hub, but not much, maybe one or two people.
Okay.
And I learned it and understood it. But today more so, we probably have, 30% of our people down there, but it's to it's really, where do the customer fit? How do we deliver value? How do they support? And, if you can take a top performing salespeople can be some of the highest paid people in a business.
Absolutely.
And if you can give them a pretty reasonable assistant that can help them, we have some amazing people in Colombia that's really help amplify our sales and increase our salespeople's time interaction with the customer.
Well, 30% is, that's a pretty good percentage. I mean, I think if, you think about most traditional distributors, that would be a big chunk of their folks. I mean, and I think that would be an eyebrow raising moment for them to think about that. But it makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, it absolutely makes a lot of sense if you can keep your salespeople doing what they're supposed to be doing best. That's really how you unleash their potential going forward.
You free their time, because what do they, when people say happy cows produce more milk, not comparing salespeople to milk, but if you really
sure.
you really take care of your people,
yeah,
they're happy about their culture. And then if every day I get up, I probably 15 years ago, it was all about the customer. It still is all about the customer. But if you take amazing care of your people, the people will naturally take care of the customer. And it's about taking care of the customer. That's going to give us success long-term for our business.
Absolutely. I mean, I have seen this over and over, but I remember looking at your organization and you and I talking about, compensation and things that you were really, with that inside sales team, you took care of your people. Let's just put it that way. You took very, very good care of your people and they produced. And they liked being there too. I mean, that was the other thing. They enjoyed coming to work and you could see that and hear it in their voices.
And when they enjoy coming to work, we're all, in every business, every person has challenges. It's how we take those challenges and overcome them. And are we having fun and living our core values at work? You got to have fun because we spend a lot of time at work. So how do we, what are our core values? How do we do it? And how do we have fun and deliver value to the customer?
So, Gabe, before I let you go, I have got to ask a little bit about your involvement with groups like YPO, because I'm very curious about really what drove you into the, looking at remote workers and some of these really unique ideas that you've come up with and put into place. Did YPO, was that a big part of that? And does it continue to be a big part of that?
Yeah, YPO, I think you were the one that introduced me to YPO, mm-hmm. Jason. And yeah, YPO has changed my life because it enables me to interact with people that see the world differently than I do. And you say, why does that matter? Well, when you hang around people that see the world differently than you do, and they'll challenge you and say, have you considered this? It's like, no, I haven't, because we all get caught in our little path, our little cocoon. And yes, YPO was the one that challenged me. There was a friend of mine that says, I have people down in Colombia. And I said, well, the Filipinos really haven't been working for the business because of the time zone. Maybe I should consider that. In fact, I was down last week in Colombia interacting with some of our team, and it really is encouraging. I think we can add more down there, which is really a big deal.
Oh, that's great. And really, I'm so happy that you've thrived in that in that organization, because I can't say enough about these types of organizations, not just YPO, but there's EO, there's, Vistage, there's a lot of different groups out there. But boy, once you get outside yourself, and you're not subject to your own best ideas, then you can really do some pretty magical things.
And it changes the way, because people and relationships is what is substantial in anybody's life. The quality of your life is the quality of your relationships.
Mm-hmm. So I truly appreciate the time, my friend. It just, it's always fun to catch up with you, because you definitely are the Rolling Stone that's gathering no moss. I mean, you are absolutely, moving and shaking, and I don't think you are going to retire. I mean, you sell these businesses and you're like, nope, not ready yet. So I think it's just exciting to hear what you're up to.
Yeah, I love the business. I love the relationships. I'm 45, so I got a lot of runway left.
You still have a little runway left. Yeah, you do. Definitely. So, all right, my friend. Well, hey, again, thank you so much for jumping on here. Maybe we won't make it 100 episodes in between the next one. So
sounds great. Jason, thank you so much for your friendship, and really appreciate it.
You bet. Take care, my friend. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Impostor Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, the Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.